Raheem Sterling could be unveiled as a Chelsea player
World
today.
class Raheem Sterling.
Having completed his medical with Chelsea. He's flown to the USA to join them on their pre-season tour in Los Angeles. World class? You think this is a good signing for Chelsea?
I most certainly do not. He thinks he's world class. That was a facetious dig at Trevor and his constant observations that Raheem Sterling is world class.
Is he world class now he's left Manchester City, Trevor?
He is. He's been world class since probably leaving Liverpool, and I think he's improved. I think everyone talks about he misses chances and this, that, and the other. You just look at his record.
Yeah, statistics.
Four Premier Leagues, scored a lot of goals, never injured. It doesn't surprise me that he's passed the medical flying colours, on his way to LA to meet up the Chelsea team, and I'm sure they'll be welcoming him with open arms because they know they're getting absolute quality and they're getting consistent quality.
Absolute quality? Well, why isn't he world class?
Because I think you have to look at world class in a certain way. I think he's a very good footballer, otherwise you wouldn't get a Man City's team. There is an argument that suggests that Stephen Hawking could score goals playing for Man City, the amount of chances they create. But the bottom line is that I think he's a good player. I think there's no doubt that he was a good player at Liverpool. He's progressed and evolved at Manchester City, as you would do under a world-class coach, because there's no doubt that Pep Guardiola is a world-class coach. Do I think he's a world-class player? No, I don't. But I think that he's a very decent player. I think he has to have a lot of chances to score goals. I don't think he does enough at times during the game. Trevor disagrees with me. And we'll see at this next stage in his career, when he goes to a slightly different side that's more workmanlike, less fluid, and less expressive, if we see him being part of the difference to change Chelsea from being an also-ran to a winning.
Just you saying less expressive, I actually feel in the Manchester City side, that brilliance is at times taken away from players in forward areas because of the patterns of play. I feel we're going to see the kind of Raheem Sterling unleashed that I believe he's going to showcase.
So you think his free spirit is restricted by Guardiola?
Of course it is.
He's going to flourish under Tuchel because he's going to allow him to be.
But it's not that he's going to. He's playing for a team. It's a team game. So whilst at Manchester City, when in Rome, do what the Romans do. So he was given jobs to do. He was told he can't do this. He must do this. Managers demand. He's not.
He's. Look at the final. Callum Hudson-Odoi.
In the final third, Callum Hudson-Odoi.
But
don't get me started on.
Look at the reaction to Thomas Tuchel suggesting that he's got to play a certain way, and if he doesn't play that way, so you're steering into the narrative that he's going to go into a camp with a manager that's very structured in how he wants his players to be.
He's very structured, but if you look at the team shape, 3-4-3, Raheem will be in one of the free forward positions. He'll have a lot more freedom to do what he wants when he gets the ball.
We will see.
Well, listen, it was only 2 seasons ago he scored 31 goals in all competitions. He averages about 1 in 3 for Manchester City from a wide position. That's not a bad return at all, but as Simon's already pointed out, they score a lot of goals, Manchester City. But Chelsea have now turned their attention to defenders because they desperately need them. Kalidou Koulibaly, Presnel Kimpembe, they're 2 players that have been mentioned. They try to boost their defensive numbers before the start of the Premier League season. But is their approach looking increasingly scattergun, or is all the rumour and speculation and just gossip because based on the fact that everyone knows that Chelsea need players? Simon, in the last few weeks...
What's their approach?
Well, I don't know, because we haven't spoken to Todd Bowley. We haven't heard from him since he took over the club.
I'll tell you what I think their approach should be, but what do you think their approach should be?
Well, what I think their approach should be is make sure they get players in place to build for the future rather than... Well, they're in a massive turning point because they've lost so many players. So they've got to build for the future.
Lost in terms of what, they can't find them, or they weren't going to sign them anyway?
Well, Antonio Rudiger and Andreas Christensen
they had him last August. They didn't offer him a new contract.
No, Rudiger I think wasn't wanted under Frank Lampard, but I think
how can he be wanted under Tuchel when Tuchel had an opportunity last August to deal with it?
Because by that stage he decided he wanted to go to Real Madrid.
Before the Roman Abramovich, because people made the argument that the players like Christensen and Rudiger and Azpilicueta were situations that evolved as a result of Roman Abramovich being in a situation of flat. That wasn't the case.
No, I didn't make that.
But a lot of people have.
That wasn't the case.
I don't think they've lost these players. No. I think if Tuchel really wanted them, he could have kept them.
Christensen is not a miss for me. I mean,
Christensen, he made strong comments about it, didn't he? He talked about the fact that the player had no integrity.
Chelsea
he moved the goalpost.
policy.
Their policy should be to buy good players.
Good players. So here's a question for you then. They've been linked with Jules Koundé. That deal hasn't been done. They've been linked with Matthias de Ligt. He's going to go somewhere else. They've been linked with Rafinha. He's going to go somewhere else. Why are they not getting their first choice?
Because there are moving parts that make decisions happen in different ways. If you're a South American footballer, there's always this propensity to want to land in Barcelona.
And you're pushing against an irresistible force. Do you think this is something to do with the fact that the change of ownership means transition, and therefore it's not as easy to get deals done?
The ownership model was, first of all, the ownership model hasn't changed that much because they're still spending money and buying players, and they're still prepared to do so. If they're in the market to buy Rafinha for 60 million quid, they're still spending money and buying players. This is not about Rafinha going to Chelsea or Barcelona because the money situation is different. It's because the player is of a certain mindset that Barcelona is where he wants to land. Right now, on footballing terms, that could make sense. It couldn't make sense because Barcelona aren't pulling up trees and are challenged by a whole raft of different landscapes. But the bottom line is Chelsea are still going after spending money on players. The manager is still in situ. The main relationship that a footballer has, as Trevor will attest to, is not with the owner, is with the manager and who he plays for. Most of the time, the players couldn't give a monkeys who the owner is, as long as they're picking up their salary every single month and playing for a manager that they like. Is that fair, Trevor?
It's quite cold the way you've put it, but it's roundabout right.
Well, let me ask you this question, though. With Chelsea needing to acquire players, Thomas Tuchel already on the pre-season tour and Chelsea not getting any new defenders in the door, and looking at Spurs and the way they've conducted their business, are Chelsea already behind the 8 ball? And should the Chelsea supporters be concerned that deals haven't been done yet?
They are behind the 8 ball because of the situation with the takeover at Chelsea. The landscape has changed, I believe, and disagree to Simon, because in the past, players over 30, they've never really gone in for them, or they've given them a 1-year contract. It's quite rare. Makaleli, there's a couple Giroud was over 30, but in general they go for lower age groups. Now, needs must.
Koulibaly is 31. Gabriel Bonlahel says that's too much money, £34 million for a player who's
Why
that
is it?
age.
Well, look at Thiago Silva. He's 38 in September. With sports science, the way players are looking after themselves, professionalism is in the game. I don't think this is a risk. I think you get 4, especially with his physical presence. Look at Koulibaly.
But that's the new ownership adapting to
that's
new
football
sports
adapting
science,
to players looking after themselves.
Absolutely, what Trevor's saying is right. The landscape has changed. It's not Chelsea changing the policy. The way that players prepare themselves and looked after is dynamic. And Gabi Abanglaho and his abacus can't tell you why £34 million is too much, because Chelsea will tell you if it's too much. If you're looking at resale, Chelsea aren't a football club that buy players for resale value.
But also £34 million
to perform.
is a bargain for someone who they've had their eye on for 3 or 4 years.
So we're in the same place then, aren't we? So, the outlier is Gabi coming up with some nonsense about why £34 million is too much for a player. The bottom line is Chelsea are looking at it saying, we need to go deep into the Champions League. We need to try and win the Premier League. £34 million for a player that's over 30 years of age is irrelevant.
But he's a top class.
Because you can still perform to a high level till late in your life. As Trevor will tell you, he can run 5K in 21 minutes now? Is that right? Yeah, less than that. Diet, nutrition, discipline, yoga.
Staying off the wine.
But Chelsea aren't buying football players because they're looking for a resale value. They're looking at footballers because they're looking for an intrinsic performance on the pitch.
Yeah.
So there's certain models, and you want to be sensible. Of course you want to be sensible. Of course you want to buy players. I mean, tell me the resale value on Jack Grealish. Do you actually believe that you're going to get £150 million for Jack Grealish in 2 or 3 years' time? No, you're not. So you bought Jack Grealish because it was a decision to improve your football team, not a decision to improve your finances.
But Chelsea getting their first choices.
Well, we just discussed a few of them, haven't we? And the moving parts behind why some of these deals won't happen. The Rafinha deal being a case in point because of the nature of what we allude. I don't want to be stereotypical in my association of South American players wanting to land in Barcelona, but they tend to. Yeah. They tend to want to land in Spain because of that natural relationship. That's why Messi was over there for so long and so on and so forth. But I think Chelsea will still, on the whole, get the bulk of the players that they want, retain the players that they need. And the changes of direction that have been associated with the loss of back 4 players, I maintain if Chelsea really, 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 really wanted to keep Antonio Rudiger, they had an opportunity last summer when they were the European champions. There was no landscape that was being affected by the Roman Abramovich situation, which happened in February. And clearly they didn't do enough because they didn't want to.
That's right, yeah.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.